A YouTube channel shouldn't be something investors buy. It should be something people watch. So why are professional investors buying them? Not YouTube, not Google, individual YouTube channels. A few years ago, that idea would have sounded ridiculous. Today, it's becoming a business strategy. Professional investors weren't just buying media companies anymore. They were buying YouTube channels. At first, that doesn't make much sense, because what investors were really buying wasn't what most people think. For decades, when investment firms wanted to buy media companies, they bought newspapers, television networks, radio stations. Then the definition of a media company quietly began to change. One of those channels was Fern. If you've watched one of their documentaries, you'll know they feel different. Carefully researched, beautifully animated. The kind of videos that feel more like premium documentaries than typical YouTube uploads. So when Fern announced a partnership with Electrify Video Partners in early 2025, people noticed. Officially, Electrify described it as a strategic partnership. Third-party ownership research has described it as a majority stake acquisition, although the exact structure hasn't been publicly disclosed. But regardless of how the deal was structured, one thing stood out. Somewhere inside this YouTube channel, professional investors believed there was a business worth owning. What did they see that everyone else missed? Imagine someone offered to buy your favorite bookstore. At first, it sounds simple. They're buying the books. Except, what if every book disappeared overnight? The bookstore would still have something incredibly valuable. Its reputation, its loyal customers, the reason people keep walking through the front door. Suddenly, you realize they were never buying the books. They were buying the business. And that's exactly how investors began looking at YouTube channels. Fern wasn't simply a collection of documentaries. It was a system. Every documentary became another doorway into the business, another opportunity for someone to discover the channel, another asset quietly working in the background. Unlike television, these documentaries never really stop working. Years later, they're still finding new viewers, still building trust, while the team sleeps, while they're researching the next story, while they're editing the next upload. The library never really stops. Little by little, it begins behaving less like a collection of videos and more like something that compounds over time. Suddenly, you're no longer looking at a YouTube channel. You're looking at infrastructure. And that's when the biggest realization hits. They weren't buying videos. They weren't buying subscribers. They were buying something that takes years to earn and seconds to lose. So if investors weren't buying the videos, what were they buying? The answer might be the hardest thing to build on the internet: trust. Think about your own YouTube habits. Sometimes you don't even read the title. You see a familiar channel, and you click. Every time someone clicks without hesitation, trust grows. Every time they recommend a video to a friend, every time they come back months later, it grows again. You can't manufacture that overnight. You can't buy it with better editing or a bigger marketing budget. It has to be earned, one video at a time. And trust wasn't the only thing Fern had built. What Fern had built wasn't just a YouTube channel. It was an organization, researchers, writers, animators, a system capable of producing high-quality documentaries over and over again. It's a very different business from one person uploading videos from a bedroom. The creator still matters, but now there's something bigger than the creator, a machine that keeps producing, keeps growing, keeps earning trust. And suddenly, another realization appears. Maybe investors weren't buying creators at all. Maybe they were buying media companies that just happened to live on YouTube. Whenever a creator announces a deal like this, the reaction is almost always the same. They sold out. It's an understandable concern. When investors get involved, people often imagine the same outcome: less creativity, more focus on profits than quality. Many viewers still feel that way today. If you compare Fern's earlier work with some of its more recent documentaries, the scope has clearly expanded. The channel didn't just produce animated video essays anymore. It began filming on location, conducting interviews, producing investigations that would have been far more ambitious than a traditional video essay. Did that happen because of Electrify? We can't say for certain. The timeline alone doesn't prove cause and effect. Electrify says its role is to provide funding, hiring, production support, commercial operations, and business infrastructure, while creators remain the creative leads. Fern has also said the partnership reduced administrative work and allowed the team to focus on producing more ambitious documentaries while remaining editorially independent. Whether that continues long-term, only time will tell. But maybe we've been asking the wrong question. Maybe investors aren't buying great creators to change them. Maybe they're trying to help them become great media companies. And Fern isn't the only example. At first, these looked like isolated deals. Now, they're starting to look like a new asset class. Fern, Donut Media, Theorist Media, creator businesses backed by companies like Spotter, different creators, different investors, but the same underlying idea. Successful YouTube channels are no longer being valued as hobbies. They're being valued as businesses. Some investors buy ownership stakes, others finance creators by investing against the future revenue of their back catalogs. Either way, they're making the same bet: the attention, the trust, and that a creator with a loyal audience might be building something far bigger than a YouTube channel. Which leaves us with one final question. If investors started treating YouTube channels like media companies, how long before creators start building them that way from day one? For most of YouTube's history, success was measured by views. Today, those numbers still matter, but investors are measuring something else. Can it expand beyond YouTube entirely? Can it become a business that's bigger than any single creator? Because it means YouTube is no longer just a platform for uploading videos. It's becoming a place where media companies are born. Some of them begin with one person, one idea. Years later, they may have researchers, animators, entire teams. The creator doesn't disappear, the business simply grows around them. And that's the shift happening quietly across the internet, one channel at a time. This story started with a simple question. Why would professional investors buy a YouTube channel? The answer wasn't hidden inside the videos. It was hidden inside everything those videos had built. Trust, systems, a brand, a library that keeps working long after it's published, a media company. Fern just happened to be one of the clearest examples, but it almost certainly won't be the last. Because if YouTube channels can become businesses, and businesses can become investment opportunities, then the creator economy is changing into something much bigger than most of us ever imagined. Maybe the biggest media companies of the next decade won't begin in television studios or newspaper offices. Maybe they'll begin with someone uploading a single video from a bedroom. And if that's true, we aren't just watching YouTube evolve. We're watching the next generation of media companies being built, one upload at a time.